we're back again, I think, anyway. Hey, at least something's kind of working here. Sort of. Okay, meant to be streaming about half an hour ago, but technical difficulties decided that we were waiting. Still didn't get some of it figured out. So, unfortunately, we're going to be dealing with some weirdness today, but hopefully, I've got about 2.5 hours we should be able to do this today, so if short of anything crazy happening, maybe we can get a first draft of this thing done today, the first song. That would be super great if we can move on beyond Poison in the Well. So I'm crossing my fingers. That's kind of the goal for today, which really there's no reason we shouldn't be able to do that. Knock on wood. Short of a disaster, we should be able to get through everything and call this thing first draft done. So let's jump over into the other screen here. All right. Yes. Okay. So first off, you will probably notice a change on the mixers down here. This is one of the technical difficulties I'm having today. I cannot seem to fix it. I don't know. I didn't mess with anything, so I don't know why it changed. But all the boxes up here are dark instead of colored. This panel right here, which usually has stuff showing on it, is totally blank. I don't know what the deal is with that. I can still kind of see the track names. It's just very dark. Like I said, I didn't mess with any settings, so I don't know why that changed. I've restarted everything. I restarted the computer, nothing. Also, OBS was acting weird, wouldn't connect to YouTube, and I had to connect this stream in a different way than normal. So if stuff isn't working, again, please do let me know that stuff isn't working. It looks to be functioning, at least, even if it doesn't look the way it normally does. Same thing down here. This stuff is functioning. It just is, practically useless because I can't tell what track is what now. So I don't know what the deal is, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised anymore when technical difficulties hit. That seems to be the norm around here. Okay, so when we got off stream yesterday, what we were getting ready to do was take a look at the string channels. The orchestra channels, meaning, and we had muted the high string channels so that we could look specifically at the 3 low string channels, which on the mixers, if I'm looking at everything right, should be these last 3 right here, are 3 low strings. So we're kind of listening to the sections that have these, which is a good portion of the song, to make sure that they are achieving what we want them to achieve in the mix, which of course, like we talked about before, is not that you can hear them perfectly 100% crystal clear, but that they are adding to the mix. They're there. If I mute them, you might notice something's gone. Other than that, they're kind of just adding to the ambience. So without further ado or further chance for anything else to go wrong, let's jump in. Mm-hmm. Guardians of His Word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. I could tell when it was muted, it was subtle. What they see is indifference. Temptations have blinded many. Within His house they dwell. Our message hated, the waters tainted. There's poison in the well. The world gets dark. We claim we're making progress. We're moving backwards. We used to like the darkness, but the world looks to a new light. It's manufactured.
They won't listen to you. There's a reason they withdrew. You stopped making sense. Started constantly taking offense. You can't hate a person's life. They think they'll come to God despite all the things you put them through. They don't think of God. They remember you.
Okay, so far, achieving what I want them to achieve. It's probably it's hard to say if it's too subtle of a difference for what any of you may be listening to this on, but when I mute them, I can tell a difference. Again, it's very subtle. It's not a big change. When you solo them, you can hear they are still fairly present when they're by themselves. They're pretty loud. Ambience. Again, that's the important thing to remember with this. They're adding ambience. This is not something that we need to hear crystal clear, these low strings. All right, let's continue.
It's not easy to admit the world sees straight through us and they rejected it. The voice of the fanatics has changed what they perceive. The truth that you preach is not what they're willing to believe. Guardians of his word, we are called to bolster resistance. The world looks to us, but what we show is our weakness. Temptations of gore.
Okay, yep, I'm good with all this so far. I think we can jump a bit ahead. I'm glad you can hear that piano right there. I know we spent a lot of time on that in the last episode, and if I'm being honest, I walked away from the last episode still feeling like maybe I hadn't gotten the piano all the way where I wanted it. But with the, a little bit of time spent away from it, coming back to it today, I'm pretty happy with where it's at. If anything, it might be covering the vocals a little, honestly. That is another important thing we might as well talk about while we're here when it comes to mixing, is that the longer you do it in one sitting, the higher the chances are that you will start to make bad decisions. So it's always good to come back a day later if you're unsure about something. That's why we check these. That's why even once we're finished with this, I'm still going to call it first draft. We may need to come back and check stuff and make sure that the decisions made remain the same with time. Okay, so verse 2. I'm quite sure musically verse 2 is the same as verse 1, so I'm sure we copy-pasted this. Let's listen to a little bit of it just to make sure that nothing's jumping out weird or not jumping out enough.
We fail to show the answer. They're driven to search elsewhere. We need to reach them.
Yep, I'm good with that. See, this is the other part of the verse. Let's go ahead and check that too.
You're not following command. You shout a verse and hope they'll understand. The threat of a consequence they don't believe exists won't change any minds. Your words have been dismissed.
Good with all that. Let's check chorus 3. Oh, hey, you know what? While we're here, let's go ahead and check these. These three things right here are also within our orchestra stuff. This is the solo violin that comes in midway through the clean guitar part, and then is joined by a second solo violin, and then just for that last note, a cello. And we're right there. Let's go ahead and check and make sure we're good with these volume-wise. We better actually listen to this entire clean section too, because we want the context. I don't know why I'm scrolling down. Yes. the only good way we can really judge the volume of this is if we hear what's leading up to it, right? So we want to hear these clean guitars and how they sit, how your brain kind of settles into this clean part, and then those violins come in, and we want to make sure that it is loud enough that it is the focus of that part. What Sam is playing right there is the focus of that part. So we want to make sure that it's loud enough to thematically be the focus, but also not so loud that you like jump out of your chair because you're not expecting it. Even when everything jumps in, when that last chorus smacks in, it feels like the last chorus is quieter than those strings, which we definitely don't want. That last chorus needs to be like a smack in the chest almost. We may even want to turn the clean guitars down a little bit. Let's go down a pretty good chunk here and just see if it's inappropriate. That was better. That was a lot closer to what I'm thinking. Let's turn the clean guitars down just a bit, but we're going to do volume automation on the individual tracks instead of doing the clean guitar master, because I want the balance that we got in the last episode of the clean guitars in that last chorus to stay the same as they already were. Don't need these nodes right here. Or do we? Yes, I think I want to get rid of these nodes actually. And these nodes, I want to keep them, but I do want to move them backwards just a hair. Okay. Opening up clean left, highlighting all of these volume envelopes on the clean guitars, and let's bring them down, not a huge amount, let's try 2 decibels. Which Logic is not showing me what it normally shows. Somehow we managed to hit 2 decibels exactly, even though I was doing that blind. What is going on with the technology today? Why is everything looking different and acting different? Okay, so now that those have gone down 2 decibels, though, it's pretty possible that these also should come down 2 decibels, because they were feeling pretty more appropriate and balanced there at this lower level. So we turn the clean guitars down, we should turn these down further as well. felt like those strings and the clean guitars were better in balance, and also when that last chorus hit, it was more of a big yeah, whereas before it felt like everything was the same. Now, this is almost definitely the fault of the limiter. We talked about this probably in episode 1. At the very end of our chain right now, right here, is the FX2, or FGX2, sorry, which is a limiter, which is something that normally goes on at the end of the mastering chain. And that is still true. We are going to be putting this on at the end of the mastering chain. This limiter that we're looking at is going to be turned off before we export the mix. So why is it on right now? And the answer is exactly what we just experienced. Limiting, which is a form of compression, which allows you to push the volume of your mix up to the industry standard loudness so that it's competitive with other recordings, is, again, it's industry standard. You have to do it. Your recording sounds weird if you don't, but by definition, it destroys dynamics because there is a ceiling. You set a ceiling, the industry standard loudness of negative 0.1 decibels, and then you use the gain knob to turn your mix up. When the loud parts hit that ceiling, they stop getting louder and start compressing. But the quieter parts keep getting louder until they're the same loudness as the loud parts. So it's destroying the dynamic. This is the reason we mix with this on. It is so that we can maintain the dynamics. Right there, we had a destroyed dynamic. That clean part used to dip down and be a little bit relaxed, and then the last chorus would punch in. But then this limiter got in and pushed that quiet part up until it was the same loudness as the loud part. Because we're mixing with this on, we know that the mastering process is going to do that, so we can turn that clean part down until the dynamic is back where it should be, so we know that when we master the song, the dynamic will not be crushed and destroyed. Other handy tip that I learned early, that right there, mix with a limiter on, don't export with that limiter on, but mix with the limiter on so that you get an idea of what the mastering process is going to do to your mix. Okay, we need to hear the low strings in that final chorus. I also just got a notification from YouTube that that apparently the signal isn't strong enough to maintain smooth streaming. So sorry if the video is choppy. Apparently technology just isn't going to do it today for me.
Water flows and heals the wounds, as death the poison is filtered through.
There no more blue line was crossed. Word, the darkness left.
The time has come for us to make amends. Show the world how to believe again.
Okay, yeah, so a pretty good indication of what the French horn sounds like there, too, without having the strings in there doing that melody part right here. Yeah, I'm pretty good with what low strings 1 is doing. Low strings 2, this right here I'm pretty sure is the only thing on this channel. Okay, what is that doing? I think I know. I think it's just doing that little harmony on the da-da-da at the end right there. Now, I did not sing the right notes, but you know what I mean. Yeah, so harmony for 2 of the 3 notes anyway. And just there anyway, I was hearing that G. That's right, right? Isn't the second low strings playing a G note at the end there? Yeah, it played bag. Haha. And I'm hearing that G a little bit too much. I don't recall having thought that when everything was in, though. So before we adjust that, let's unmute our high strings and listen to that section again and see if that G still jumping out kind of in an unpleasant way, because I didn't care for it just there. So in the full context, I think that G is not so bad. We don't need to waste volume automation on turning that down when it seems fine. It seems like we're mostly hearing the higher E note that high strings 1 is playing, and that's kind of helping cover that G, and the G ends up just sort of adding to everything rather than jumping out and being kind of nasty. Another thing that's kind of interesting, and this, based on theory and logic, should clash, but I'm not hearing the clash. Something somewhere, probably one of the rhythm guitars, is kind of like feeding back an F sharp, kind of like adding the add 9 feeling to that chord there. I wonder if maybe it's James's guitars. I'm just kind of curious now, where is that like F sharp note that I'm hearing coming from? Yeah, are you guys catching that too in these other speakers? We're hitting the E there, but it's kind of like feeding back an F sharp note, that sound right there. It's neat, unintentional, but super neat. I guess I didn't check to see whose guitar was doing that. Maybe it's everybody. Well, James's guitar is definitely doing it. My guitar's sort of doing it, but not near as much as James's. That's neat. Yeah, I was just curious if I could get rid of this notification over here. Apparently I can't. Okay, so I think we're good on low strings everywhere. We also managed to get our solo violin 1, 2, and cello good. So now we need to start focusing more on the high strings. We kind of need to go back through everything with the same fine-tooth comb, with listening this time to the high strings. Now, we're not going to mute the low strings, so we're building back our context. The high strings are meant to be a little bit more out there than the low strings are. Usually the high strings add something that's a little bit more audible, but we do need to be very careful, because until the end there, the strings aren't meant to be doing something that should be right up in front of the mix, right? And even at the end there, we got to be careful to maintain the balance between that string melody and the vocals, because they kind of both need to be present, and it's arguable which one should be more at the front. I think your average person would probably argue the vocals should be a little bit more in the front. So that's going to be a line. That last chorus is just going to be a really careful balance, I think. But we're already most of the way there, so I'm not super worried about it. Okay, so let's jump back to chorus 1. Keep in mind that we are focusing mostly on the high strings parts, making sure again that they are not too loud, but also not too quiet. Right in the right spot.
Guardians of His word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but what they see is indifference. Temptations of power have blinded many. Within His house they dwell.
for that piece, I did end up turning it up just a hair. I could hear it where it was, but I wanted to hear it just a tad bit better. So we went up half a decibel. Okay, our next little bit here is this high strings 3 in verse 1.
The world gets darker every time. We're making progress. We're moving backwards. We used to like the darkness.
Hold on. Why is high strings 3 set to touch all of a sudden? Nothing else did that, right? Okay, these are all set to read, but why are they green? Okay, the green ones must be the ones with active track envelopes. I don't think that was like that before. Gosh. I sure wish I weren't the bane of technology. I don't understand why things keep changing when I didn't change them. And this app hasn't updated since yesterday. It updated recently, but not since yesterday. So why is everything different? Okay. I can hear that high strings 3 part, but I would like to... I'm curious as to what it would sound like if it's just a little bit louder. Again, I don't want to push it too much. Let's try 1 decibel and see kind of what that sounds like. Just a little bit more.
The world gets darker every day. We claim we're making progress. We're moving backwards. We used to like the darkness, but the world looks to a new light. It's manufactured.
They won't listen to you. There's a reason they withdrew. You stopped making sense. Started constantly taking offense. You can't hate a person's life if they go come to God despite all the things you put them through. They don't think of God.
Okay, yep, I think I'm good with all that. I did leave that. I tried turning it back down about half a decibel, and then it kind of started to disappear again, so I pushed it back up. Okay, moving back to high strings 1. Why is selecting it with this changing this to touch? I don't want it on touch. Let me try something just because I'm curious. Oh, whoops. Wrong screen. So this right here is the representation of these 2 mixers. So what happens if I delete them? Obviously it disables them. Let's see if we re-add them from scratch, will that do anything? Is it doing anything? Yeah, so, oops. If we add this, oh, that wasn't right. We add this. Yeah. Okay. We just made it worse instead of better. Yeah, sounds about right. Oh, look. Maybe this did work. All right. Now we're getting somewhere. Okay, they're backwards, though. Okay, maybe we fixed that problem. I would argue I shouldn't have had to do that, but you know what? The problem's fixed. I'm good. I'm good. Okay, let's get back to where we were going. High strings 1. Yes, high strings 1. Now, if I press this, this doesn't switch anything into touch mode. Yes, okay. Okay. Back in business. Here we are. Second part of verse 1. Back to high strings 1.
It's not easy to admit the world sees right through us and they rejected it. The voice of the fanatics has changed what they perceive. The truth that you preach is not what they're willing to believe. Guardian.
Okay, couple thoughts about that. We were actually kind of jumping back and forth between high strings 1 and 3 there. And I was hearing a little bit too much of high strings 1, I think, and maybe not enough of high strings 3. So let's open up some volume envelopes here. Let me listen again here.
It's not easy to admit the world sees right through us and they rejected it. The voice of the fanatics has changed what they perceive. The truth that you preach is not what they're willing to believe.
Okay, yeah, so interesting. I think high strings 1 ends up in a place I'm okay with, but it starts a little bit strong. So let's actually do this. Let's pull it down. Oop, not like that. But have it kind of return back up to where it currently is, slowly over the course of that first note that he plays. Yeah, let's try going down 3 decibels and see if that kind of evens it out. And then high strings 3 is doing the and I'm just not quite hearing that as well as I want to. So let's just go ahead and turn that up maybe 3 decibels and just see what kind of happens there.
They remember you.
It's not easy to admit the world sees right through us and they rejected it. The voice of the fanatics has changed what they perceive. The truth that you preach is not what they're willing to believe. Guardians of his word.
Okay, let me hear the beginning again.
It's not easy to admit the world sees.
Yep, okay, I think I'm good with that. I did end up turning the high strings 3 down just a little bit. I also think we were having issues with this opus when we recorded, with it being like kind of behind. Like it would get further and further behind the more you recorded. And this part, like the second half of this part, still feels just a tiny bit behind to me. I think I'm going to cut that there instead. Let's pull that forward just like by milliseconds and see if we can get that to sit a little better.
Is not what they're willing to believe. Guardians of his word.
Yeah, that feels a little bit more like right on the beat. And I know he played it like that. You know, Sam isn't that far behind. And if he had played it like that, one of us would have noticed that it was a little off. So that's certainly something to do with logic or east-west or something like that. So pull it a little bit forward. We're probably going to need to do that in the second verse too. Okay, so let's listen to the second chorus. Looks like we're back to high strings 1 here. This is the one, yeah, second chorus is where we're wanting the piano to be the thing that really stands out. So we may need to bring high strings 1 back down a little bit here.
Guardians of His word, we are called to bolster resistance. The world looks to us, but what we show is our weakness. Temptations of glory have blinded many. Within His house they dwell. Ministry negated, the waters tainted. There's poison in the well.
We failed to show the answer.
Guardians of His word, we are called to bolster resistance. The world looks to us, but what we show is our weakness. Temptations of glory have blinded many. Within His house they dwell. Ministry negated, the waters tainted. There's poison in the well.
We failed to show the
Okay, I think we got somewhere good with that. Was just a hair loud, especially at the end. You can even kind of see that this part gets louder and louder. I think he was kind of moving upwards with different inversions throughout. And the beginning sits okay, but the ending, it does still get just a little bit loud. So let's take, starting about right here, let's take another decibel out of this. So again, not much, just a little bit, just relaxing it a little.
Temptations of glory have blinded many. Within His house they dwell. Ministry negated, the waters tainted. There's poison in the well.
Pretty good with that. Now, the string track does also do that in the first chorus. Now, I don't know about you guys. I didn't notice it getting loud, but it does. So, like, is it okay? Just because of the guitar doing the different thing and the vocals singing a slightly different thing, is it okay, or should we also cut it there? Let's check that out one more time.
Guardians of His word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but what they see is indifference. Temptations of power have blinded many. Within His house they dwell.
Yeah, I think I do want to make a small cut there. Cut meaning slightly less volume. See, we took it down to 15 before. Let's do that. And we want to make sure that we don't mess up anything that's after this. Put it back at 13.5 after that. Oh, actually, this ended up being a redundancy, so we can leave that down, actually.
Temptations of power have blinded many. Within His house they dwell. Our message hated, the waters tainted. There's poison in the well.
Yeah, okay. I'm good with that. Ooh, you know what I just remembered? This will only take a second. Whatever episode I was talking about redundancies when we did the tom fills, pretty sure I missed a really big one. Yeah. This final fill right here, all three of these tom tracks jump back down to their initial volume, even though there are no more fills. Fixed. Saving the tiniest little bit of CPU power there. But when you're talking about AfterWinter songs that have like 100 audio tracks in them, Any CPU power you can save is a good thing. Okay, so we got chorus 2. Verse 2 ought to be the same thing as verse 1, which means we're going to need to do that weird little move right here. This part should be fine. Let's listen and make sure.
We failed to show the answer. They're driven to search elsewhere. We need to reach them. We're the ones at fault here. We should try harder to understand what will speak to them.
We don't have that much time. Should've stopped and actually read the signs. We've been getting further away. Convoluting the message we convey. We can annoy them until believe. Can berate them until they agree. Why can't we see the clues? They won't think of God. They'll remember you.
You're not following command. You shout a
Okay, yeah, that part was fine. So in the last one, in the last verse, what we did here was we turned this section of strings 3 up by 2 decibels. I had tried it by 3, but then I brought it back down 1. And then on this, we did a little drop and let it kind of slowly come back in. And I do believe that drop was at -18. Not that it's important that it's exactly the same, but if it worked last time, it ought to work or come pretty close to working this time. Logic, this track is pretty big. There we go. There's no reason you shouldn't go to 18. Now that I've set it at 18, oh, it wasn't. It wasn't 18. Okay. Yeah, that's because the whole track has been reset. It's down at 15. Whereas it should be at 13.5. That's where I thought. So I remembered that it was 3. It was a cut of 3 decibels, but we weren't at the right volume anyway. So this should be at 16.5. Okay.
You're not following command. You shout a verse and hope they'll understand. The threat of a consequence they don't believe exists won't change any minds. Your words have been dismissed.
Okay, yes. And then this part we actually cut and moved a little bit. I kind of feel like I might have just heard my door open. Yes, fix that. 1 sec. Either I just imagined that, or that was another one of those studio is kind of haunted things. Okay, so now we're into the solo. We got high strings 1 moving throughout this. This is another thing we want to be kind of careful about. This might build up because he's hitting and holding notes, and we don't want this to be too loud. yeah, I think throughout the solo, I did turn it down just a little bit. I think that's good. We might actually want that last note to come back up a little bit. Right there, I feel like I could use just a little bit more strings. Let's go back up to 13.5 where we were. There we go. That drop off right there. Just wanted a little bit more of that E note in the strings to be hitting and holding. A quick question. This might just be an experiment, but it's the type of thing that you want to do in this stage. There's a riff that the rhythm guitars are playing. Now, both James and I are playing it, but this would be considered James's part because it's during the dual part of the solo here. And it's kind of disappearing. I'm not really hearing it all that well. So I'm wondering if we couldn't turn it up just a little bit, because obviously I don't want it to take precedence over what the solos are doing, but I'm not hearing the riff itself at all. And I don't know if we want to just like not hear it. So I'm wondering, can we turn that up without it like getting in the way of anything else? Check out this little bit here. And I feel like that's a pretty like neat little thing that's going on in the solo. Now, obviously, that's not meant to take center stage or anything. There's a solo going on right there, but I'm not hearing it at all in the whole mix. So can we, maybe bump this up a decibel and actually hear it? Sort of. It was better. It was definitely better, and it definitely still didn't get in the way. Let's bump it up a little bit more and just see if we can get to that line. The line where you can hear it pretty well, but it's not like yanking your ear away from the solo. Pretty good with that, I think. That is, honestly, that's genuinely amazing to me. I don't think I've ever in my career as a mixing engineer turned the rhythm guitars up during a guitar solo. Like I talked about in the last couple of episodes, I'm usually turning them down to make room for the solos. So to not only not need to turn them down, but to actually turn them up for a section, just exploded my brain a little bit, I think. But yeah, I think that did good. They didn't take center stage. They weren't super audible for the entire time, but they were there enough that if you're listening for it, you will absolutely hear it. It's not just like being buried in everything else. Okay, so then I think all that's left now then is chorus 3 regarding these high strings, and we do have strings 1 and strings 2. This is the only appearance of high strings 2, which is the track that jumps in with that big melody that happens at the end. So we're going to want to try and paint this picture very carefully, because I do want that melody to be prominent, but I don't want it to be more important than the vocals. And I feel like it maybe is right at the moment.
Water flows and heals the wounds, past death
yeah. So I do think that melody is a little bit too loud. Now, if there weren't vocals there, I think that would be perfect. If there was no singing going on right there, that feels like the correct volume. It's a melody. It's sitting in front. It's epic. It makes everything feel really big. But I don't know about you guys. That melody is drawing my ear away from what the vocals are saying. I know what those vocals are saying, and I'm not sure that I clearly heard because that melody is pulling me away from it. I want that melody to be there, but I don't think I want it to be quite so in your face. But just because, so you kind of see what I mean. If we mute the vocals and listen to that section, you'll hear that I think the volume is pretty appropriate if there weren't singing also. But I think we can fix this just by turning that down and maybe turning that French horn part down a little bit. Specifically, high strings 2. And we shouldn't need to do this with a volume envelope because it's the only thing on this track. There's no reason for that volume to jump up and down. Let's cut by 3 on both high strings 2 and the French horn and see if that feels inappropriate. Closer. It might be a little too quiet now, but it's definitely right on the edge. Let's go up a decibel, meaning we only cut 2 instead of 3. Yeah, I think that was right on, at least for me. That just like kind of brought something out a little bit. That felt right. I feel like, though, the high strings 2 ends on that high E, and that is a little bit loud. Just that last note. So let's cut that a couple decibels. Now, this is the last instrument that's in chorus 3. I'm pretty confident. The only other thing we need to get here in chorus 3 is the vocals, right? Okay, so now is where we need to kind of focus on making sure that this is instrumentally where we want it to be. It's in a really good spot. I know I keep saying that over and over. This is in a pretty good spot, but I think we can do a little bit better with the balance of everything in this chorus 3. This is the big epic thing. This is the payoff. This is, if you stuck around for the long song, here's your special treat. This has got to be right, this end. And right at the moment, again, I think we're close. I'm still hearing a little bit too much low mids in something, maybe the clean guitar. I'm not hearing the rhythm guitars as much as I want to. So those are a couple of things I want to try and get in balance just a little bit better. Other than that, I think this thing is just about right. Majenica's vocal is a little bit loud. When she says "stand no more," I don't remember. She says "stand no more." That part's a little bit loud. I know we're going to have to adjust that. but I want to see if we can get this figured out. So let's listen to this again, and I'm going to mute the clean guitars so that I can see if that's what's causing that kind of like low mid thing that I don't like.
Water flows and heals the wounds, has dead the poisonous filter through.
Yeah, it's definitely the clean guitars adding this sort of like middle that's muddying everything up. Now, we did do some stuff about that in the last episode. We added this little cut right here at 300, that only activates during that chorus. You can see if we back up, that cut goes away. So we did work on this a little bit, but we didn't get rid of enough, I think. We got a little boost here at 150. That could be causing it. Now, it's worth saying, too, that I think that the clean guitars in the section where they're by themselves sound fine. So anything we do to this, I don't want to do to that. I think that's good. That shouldn't be messed with. So we're going to need to do something with automation to this. If we change some EQ, it's going to need to appear in this chorus just like that 300 cut. We need to see if we need to make the 300 cut deeper, cut somewhere else, maybe change this 150 boost that I've got. Let's kind of play around and kind of see what happens. So I increased the 300 cut to -5, and that seemed to help a lot. Also gave us a little bit more boost here at 2500 just to help it cut through, because after I had cut more out of 300, it kind of disappeared. I wasn't hearing the clean guitars very much at all. So we want to give them a little bit more high-end sheen. But again, this is not something that I want to be when the clean guitars are by themselves. So that was peak 4 is that 2500 thing. Let's take a look at the gain for peak 4, create an envelope for that. We're going to highlight just this chorus 3 and not even the ending. So once that last note hits and the clean guitars kind of continue on out, I want this to go away again. So before chorus 3, the clean guitars are going to have the 1.5 boost, which is where they were, except of course we're going straight from 1.4 to 1.6. Same thing after the chorus. We want just that 1.5 decibel boost. But during the chorus, I think we're going to let's try increasing that boost clear to 5. got that. Okay, now that we've fixed the low-mid issue, let's see if we can get those rhythm guitars popping out just a hair better. Now, you absolutely could accomplish something like this with volume automation on the Rhythm Guitars Master, because we are wanting all of them to jump up a little bit more. But, sorry, distraction. But I want to be able to move the Rhythm Guitars Master fader up and down without the volume envelope just putting it back wherever it used to be. So I'm going to do this on the 4 individual tracks. I think what I want to do is try just turning them up about a decibel for this entire last chorus and see if they, get in the way or cover anything up. So we're going to try that first and just kind of see what happens. So that's turning them up by about a decibel. I think I'm going to move these nodes back just a little bit, since there's nothing before that. And let's just kind of see what that does to it.
Water flows and heals the wounds, has dead the poisonous filter through.
There no more the line was crossed. Spread the word, the darkness lies.
The time has come for us to make amends. Show the world how to believe again.
So ended up cutting a little, where we went up half a decibel basically. Now the end, I do kind of want these guitars to get out of the way a little bit of the clean guitars that are happening at the end, but I also don't really want to lose the heft of the hit at the current volume. So I think what we want to do for this is that we're going to highlight the spot where we hit that final chord, which is right here at 328. We're going to stick a node there. And we're going to jump out about 4 measures, out here to 332, and stick a node there. Now we need to put a temporary node out here. And we are going to return these guitars to the volume they were before we messed with anything, which was -6. It's a very tiny cut, but you can see that it gradually brings us down. So we'll still get the impact of the hit at the higher volume, but then it will gradually bring the volume back down to its more relaxed state so the clean guitars can push through just a little bit better. We also might want to try turning up that little da-da-da-da-da that I pointed out a couple of episodes ago. I can hear it pretty well. I'm curious what it would sound like if it were a little louder. Yes. Quick back check. We spent a lot of time balancing that big orchestra melody right there so that it wasn't in the way of the vocals. Now that the guitars are further up, is that stepping on that balance that we made? I don't know about you guys, but in these last listen-throughs, I've been really focused on the rhythm guitar. We need to kind of step back and view the whole picture again and make sure that that balance we worked pretty hard on remains.
Show the world
pretty good with it. Honestly, I think it's right on the line where maybe that orchestra melody could come up just a hair. I don't know. What do you guys think? It's showing I've got 4 people watching. Throw something in the chat there. Do you think that orchestra, the big orchestra melody there, should that come up a little bit? Is it okay where it is? Or is it too loud? I mean, whatever you think. Throw it in the chat real fast. I'm curious what your opinion of that is. In the meantime, I want to find that little guitar thing that I keep talking about and see if boosting that a little bit hurts or helps. That right there. I like that little guitar thing. I lost the rhythm guitars. There they are. It definitely starts at the end of measure 320 somewhere. So it's on the end of 3 there, and then lasts for the entire measure of 321. I'm going to try boosting those another half decibel and just see what that kind of does. Pretty good there. I'm still a little bit on the fence about that orchestra thing there. If anybody's got an opinion, please throw that in the comments. Let me play that again for you just in case you're not sure what I'm talking about. The melody, this little orchestra melody thing that's happening right here is kind of a feature of this spot, but it's really easy for it to get in the way of the vocals. We don't want it to get in the way of the vocals, which is why it's a little quiet. What you're listening for is this. That thing right there. Listen to the entire mix again right there and see what you think. Is it too quiet? Is it just right? Is it too loud? Keeping in mind it should be there, but it should not cover the vocals. Here it is in the whole mix. Towards pushing it up a little, but I still would very much enjoy anybody's opinion if you want to throw it in there. Let's try it up a little. Just like half a decibel. So here it is up just a hair. Dad said, according to his laptop speakers, the string melody is a little bit too quiet. That's kind of what I was leaning toward, too. I turned it up just about half a decibel there for that listen through, and that felt a lot better here. You guys let me know if you think that still ought to come up a little bit. I wouldn't want to turn it up too much more for fear that it would get in the way of the vocals, but personally I felt pretty good about it right there where it was up just a hair. Don't be afraid to throw some stuff in there for sure. Okay. So, until we potentially get some more answers about that, because the stream is a little bit behind, so like I'm seeing comments quite a bit after I say anything. Excuse me. So I'm going to go ahead and move on until potentially more stuff pops up. That's it for the orchestra stuff, so that's good. We are super, super close to being, done with the first draft of this, which would be awesome. We've got leads going on next. Oh, the synths. Now, I was actually paying attention to this when we were hearing the orchestra. These little synths that Sam is playing in the verse, I'm pretty good with them where they are. Let's take a listen to them in verse 1. I know they're the exact same in verse 2, so let's just take a listen real fast. But I'm pretty sure they're good where they're at.
We used to like the darkness, but the world looks to a new light. It's manufactured.
They won't listen to you. There's a reason they withdrew. You stopped making sense. Started constantly taking offense. You can't hate a person's life if they can come to God despite all the things you put them through. They don't think of God. They remember you.
Yeah, I think I'm good with those there. Okay, so now we're into the leads, the 5 lead tracks. Now, we have already spent quite a good amount of time on these to make sure that they are sitting where we want them to, but let's just review, paying very special attention. We're in the full context of everything in the mix. We want to take a listen. Here's the leads that are in the intro. So this is the doubled thing, a little bit left, a little bit right. Those right there. So those are a weird thing. Normally when a lead hits, it's meant to kind of be the focus. I'm sharing focus in that section with what Sam is doing on the organ. So they are a bit quiet, and I'm fine with that. I think that's appropriate for at least what I'm going for. So now jumping to the actual solo, we've got the guitar solo, a section where me and Sam are both playing guitar and keyboard, and then jumps to just keyboard. Now in all our previous listen throughs, I've been good with this, but let's just kind of see. I was thinking that the keyboard was a little quiet when both he and I were playing. That track is a little quieter. Not sure why. Maybe I bumped a fader at some point. the keyboard down just a hair. Made sure to do it on both tracks this time. I want to try really fast. I would like to make the rhythm guitars just a hair more, what's the right word? Aggressive? Let's go pretty high up here. Let's go to 2700 hertz. We're still at a pretty narrow Q here. And just add a couple of decibels and just see. We get that little bit, tiny little bit more top end sizzle here. Ooh, what did I do? I messed something up, didn't I? We've got a volume envelope on our peak 3 gain. And that's what I just moved. Okay, that was at 600 before. So, okay, so chorus 2 I took a little bit out of 600.
Guardians of his word, we are called to bolster resistance.
Okay, so we're actually using all of our peaks at the moment. Okay, well, let's add another channel EQ. Because this might be nothing, you know what I mean? I'm just kind of curious. If we give ourselves a little bit of 2700, what does that do?
We're the ones that fall here. We should try harder to understand what will speak to them.
We don't have that much time. Should have stopped and actually read the signs. We've been getting further away. Convoluting the message we convey. We can annoy them into belief. Can berate them until they agree. Why can't we see the clues? They won't think of God. They'll remember you.
You're not following command. You shout a person, hope they'll understand. The threat of a consequence they don't believe exists won't change any minds. Your words have been dismissed.
Yeah, I'm liking that. Just a little bit of extra sizzle on the top end of the guitar is definitely not a bad thing. And also, by the way, if the music sounded a little bit weird for you and you weren't here for the last couple of episodes, we activated what's called a mid-range band pass, which is an EQ right here, taking out our low lows and our high highs, so that we can really focus on the one range of frequencies that every single speaker everywhere has, which is the mid-range. So that's why the music sounded weird for just a little bit there. Engaged that just to make sure that it wasn't making our rhythm guitars sound weird in that mid-range. Okay, I want to jump up to chorus 3 now. I'm pretty satisfied with those leads, but since we made a change to the rhythm guitars, I do want to check that our balance in chorus 3 was not upset.
Water flows and heals the wounds as dead the poison is filtered through.
Stand no more the line was crossed. Spread the word, the darkness lies.
The time has
gave him a little bit more clarity. I think that's okay. Now, we did not boost the same frequency that we boosted in the clean guitar. That was around this. I think it was 2520, and we've just boosted 27. Yeah, so we shouldn't be trampling anything right there. Okay, yeah, I think we're good with that. Let's move on into vocals. So lead vocals first, of course. We're just going through it section by section and making sure that there isn't any words that are too loud or too quiet in either of the lead vocal tracks. We're going to do me and Majennica's together because there is no point in this song where our lead tracks are singing together. Now, she does have some background vocal tracks in the chorus that overlap mine, but our lead vocals never overlap. Now, there's a couple of points that I already know that we're going to mess with, so I'm going to go ahead and put volume envelopes on here. For example, I know Majennica's line in chorus 3 about stand no more, the line was crossed, is a little too loud. I also know that I want to focus on verse 1 and my vocal where I say manufactured, as I have mentioned several times over and over that the d sound at the end of that word is not very clear. Okay, so just starting right here at the beginning of the vocals, let's go ahead and blow these up just a little bit. We can see them a little bit better. Okay, so we're starting off with lead vocals from me.
Guardians of His word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but what they see is indifference. Temptations of power have blinded many. Within His house they dwell. Our message hated, the waters tainted. There's poison in the well. The world gets darker every day. We claim we're making progress. We're moving backwards.
Okay, I was thinking I could actually use a little bit more lead vocal. The verse seems better balanced than the chorus. I is half a decibel more lead vocal and half a decibel less background vocal.
Guardians of His word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but what they see is indifference. Temptations of power have blinded many. Within His house they dwell. Our message hated, the waters tainted. There's poison in the well. The world.
Okay, the lead vocals were better. I was struggling to hear some of the background vocals that time, though, so maybe those shouldn't be down.
Guardians of His word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but what they see is indifference. Temptations of power have blinded many. Within His house they dwell. Our message hated, the waters tainted. There's poison in the well.
Okay, getting pretty good with that. Looks like we may want to take a look at our overall peak level, because we are coming in still a bit under where we should. Okay, let's continue moving here. So verse 1.
The world gets darker every day. We claim we're making progress. We're moving
So let's take the end of that word on both tracks and crank the volume all the way to the top. Well, I heard it that time. It sure felt unnatural. Okay, let me hear that with a little bit more context. All right, now it sounds a little bit weird, but I kind of feel like it's because I know the volume like pretty severely jumps right there.
But the world looks to a new light. It's manufactured.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that. I can hear the sound. That was a pretty wild length we had to go to, though, to turn it up like 9.5 decibels, and also for me to have to put the sound in from the temporary vocal. But it's there. Okay, so here's Majenica's part.
They won't listen to you. There's a reason they withdrew. You stopped making sense.
Okay, I feel like the very first phrase was just a hair quieter than the rest of it.
They won't listen to you. There's a reason they withdrew. You stopped making sense. Started constantly taking offense. You can't hate a person's life. They think they'll come to God despite all the things you put them through. They don't think of God. They remember you.
Are the little runs in the guitars and synth a little too loud?
They won't listen to you. There's a reason they withdrew. You stopped making sense. Started constantly taking offense. You can't hate a person's life. They think they'll come to God despite all the things you put them through. They don't think of God. They remember you.
Hard to say. It's really close. It's on the line again. You know what I mean? Because it's pretty good when Majenica's vocals, when they're kind of trading back and forth, she sings a bit and then they happen, she sings a bit and then they happen. But in that second half, her vocals start overlapping them just a little bit. And that's when I'm wondering if maybe they're a hair too loud. But if we turn them down there, we should probably turn them down the other spot too. The problem is it would be a little bit of a pain in the butt to test that. But we probably should. Luckily, we do have them already highlighted because this was an area that I was messing with James and I's volume. Okay, so if we take them down by a decibel, so we essentially, instead of turning James up, we've just turned me down by 2 decibels, basically. What does this sound like?
They won't listen to you. There's a reason they withdrew. You stopped making sense. Listen to you. There's a reason they withdrew.
Yeah, I'm thinking that is what we should do. We also need to turn the synth down then, so the synth needs to come down by a decibel, although we should do that on the master, like that. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and leave the nodes here on James's track, just in case later we change our minds. It'll be easier than remaking that. So all we're doing, we're not deleting the change we made to the mix of James and I's guitars. We're just making sure that those little runs aren't leaping out the speaker at everybody. There is this one here that was in octaves rather than in harmony, so we want to see if we need to make a change for that.
You stopped making sense. Started constantly taking offense. You can't hate a person's life.
Yeah, that did jump out just a little bit. Oh. I've turned my magnetization off. Okay, so in this case, we actually need to go down both of us go down a decibel.
Started constantly taking offense. You can't hate a person's life if they will come to God despite all the things you put them through. They don't think of God. They remember you.
I think we're gonna leave that one up though. That's what I was waiting for. I knew these needed to come down, but that kind of double long one that had the mistake in it we fixed in one of the other episodes. I think I want to leave that one up a little bit. Or up where it currently is, I should say.
They won't listen to you. There's a reason they withdrew. You stopped making sense. Started constantly taking offense. You can't hate a person's life if they will come to God despite all the things you put them through. They don't think of God. They remember you.
Okay. Trying another small change here. What if they still came up just about half a decibel? Oh man, this is hard on the eyes a little bit. I am pretty sure that I'm starting to need glasses. I should probably make that appointment. Okay, let's try that at half a decibel.
They won't listen to you. There's a reason they withdrew. You stopped making sense. Started constantly taking offense. You can't hate a person's life if they will come to God despite all the things you put them through. They don't think of God. They remember you.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, let's go ahead and make that change in the second verse too. Okay, so each one of these goes up half a decibel rather than up one. Then this little section that previously was unaffected needs an envelope where we take it down by half. And each one of these needs to go down by half. I remember pointing that out even in the episode where we were looking at the guitars, that it kind of seemed like these were a little louder than the things around it, and that we needed to be wary of that. So now we've taken care of that. It's funny how listening to the vocal kind of brought that to mind. But that's how it goes. Okay, jumping back down to Majenica's. I think I might bring up They Remember You just a hair. But again, not by much, just a little bit.
All the things you put them through. They don't think of God. They remember you.
It's not easy to admit. The world sees right through us and they rejected it. The voice of the fanatics has changed what they perceive. The truth that you preach is not what they're willing to believe.
One more small change to the guitars. Now that we're hearing that 2700 boost a little bit more, I think it is a little bit much. I'm going to back it off just by, again, half a decibel, just a hair. Working on finding the line that we need to come up to but not cross.
Fanatics has changed what they perceive. The truth that you preach is not what they're willing to believe. Guardians of His word, we are called to bolster resistance. The world looks to us, but what we
hold in your brain how loud Majenica's vocal was right there.
They won't listen to you. There's a reason they withdrew. You stopped making sense.
Okay, I was kind of imagining that her vocal seemed a little bit louder right there, but no, listening to them jumping back and forth from first verse to second verse, they do seem comparable. Okay, continuing on from where we were.
We're the ones at fault here. We should try harder to understand what will speak to them.
We don't have that much time. Should have stopped and actually read the signs. We've been getting further away. Convoluting the message we convey.
Interesting. Okay, now my vocals seem a little bit quiet there, but hers still seemed a hair loud. Weird. Let's take her down just a little bit to a volume that I would very much appreciate if Logic would let me have. There we go. And mine up. So maybe it's the section of music. It's just like a little bit harder to cut through. Let's go ahead and let her average 4.5 in this first verse too. Which means we can get rid of that set of nodes right there.
There's a reason they withdrew. You stopped making sense. Started constantly taking offense. You can't hate a person's life if they will come to God despite all the things you put them through. They don't think of God. They remember you.
It's not easy to admit. The world sees right through us and they reject.
We failed to show the answer. They're driven to search elsewhere. We need to reach them. We're the ones at fault here. We should try harder to understand what will speak to them.
We don't have that much time. Should have stopped and actually read the signs. We've been getting further away. Convoluting the message we convey. We can't annoy them into belief. Can't berate them until they agree. Why can't we see the clues? Berate them until they agree. Why
Agree seemed a little quiet there.
can't berate them until they agree? Why can't
Yeah.
till they agree?
Okay, yeah, so agree does start back here. Words look weird when they're in wave form. When I say the word agree, I don't feel like there's a gap between and gree. But looking at it, I mean, there clearly is. Logic, there we go. Me and you are going to fight.
Berate them until they agree. Why can't we see the clues? They won't think of God. They'll remember you.
Just like we did with Majennica, I think I want to turn that up just a little. They'll remember you.
They'll remember you.
You're not following.
We've accidentally introduced a little redundancy there. Why are we suddenly at 0.4s on the double? We weren't off axis before, were we? Yeah, suddenly the whole thing is off axis. How did that happen? But of course, it's going to go right from 15.4 to 15.6. But why, though? There. There we go. Okay. And yeah, jumping up to... Oh no, we have one more Majennica part. Here we go.
You're not following command. The shadow person hope they'll understand. The threat of a consequence they don't believe exists won't change any minds. Your words have been dismissed.
Okay, pretty good with all that, I think. Let's jump up to chorus 3. And we should be able to kind of close out our lead vocals anyway, and then we'll come back and kind of focus on the background vocals.
Water flows and heals the wounds past death.
Wounds is a little bit quiet.
Heals the wounds
I didn't even see it. I'm just simply saying that word quieter. Hold on, I could hear the word that time, but I almost kind of heard the volume jump. Yeah, it feels a little bit unnatural. My vocal does feel just a little bit quiet overall in this section too, I think. So grab, yeah, that should grab all the correct bits there. Okay, yeah, we grabbed all the right bits there. I think I'm gonna increase my vocal to 5 here.
Water flows and heals the wounds past death. The poison is filtered through.
Stand no more.
Water flows and heals the wounds past death. The poison is filtered through.
Stand no more. The line was crossed. Spread the word. The darkness left.
The time.
Okay, so not all of Majenica's vocal needs to come down there. So these 3 words that are visibly louder should come down just a little bit. And then the last bit should come down just a little bit. Now the compressor that we've got on her channel is taking care of some of that. So the difference isn't quite as great as our eyes are trying to trick us into thinking, but it is still louder.
Stand no more. The line was crossed. Spread the word. The darkness left.
The time.
Okay, so yeah, again, I think there's a little bit we can do to smooth that a little even further. We're going to turn these down just a hair as well. I want the word "the" right here to be a little louder. I think I want these to be just a hair quieter even yet.
Stand no more. The line was crossed. Spread the word. The darkness left.
The time.
Okay, so our lost is now too quiet. You can tell that that's been turned down, which we don't want.
Darkness left.
The time.
Yeah, let's roll with that. Okay, now this right here is going to be a redundancy. That can go away. Is this a redundancy? Turning her down at the beginning of chorus 3. No. Okay. My vocal. That is a redundancy. Okay, so if we turn mine up to 5, we can't tell because it's not showing me the right thing. Yes, then we should be able to delete these nodes, and that didn't mess up anything back here. Right, yes, okay. One more phrase here.
The time has come for us to make amends. Show the world how to believe again.
Hey, Reeker Boy, how's it going? That's a name I do not recognize. Welcome to the chat. Absolutely. We are mixing a prog album, as the title suggests, I suppose. Yes, I think I'm good with the volume of the background vocals right there, too. I think that balance is pretty nice. Okay, so we just need to get background vocals on this, which shouldn't take too long because it's just the 3 choruses that have background vocals. There aren't any other spots in this particular song where there are background vocals. There is at least one thing I know I want to focus on, and that's this quad-tracked BG2 right here in choruses 1 and 2 that says the word tainted, where it suddenly feels like the TED is way louder than everything else. So we definitely want to target that. Everything else might be okay, but we're definitely going to listen. I do want to let the song play all the way from front to back as is, because we need to check our overall volume. So now that we're getting near the end of the process here, this right here, the drums and instruments master, where everything that is not a vocal is coming, should be hitting -7 or close. Doesn't have to be exact, and I'm pretty sure we're coming in under. So I want to see that. I also want to see our router here, which is where everything comes, should be right around -5. Now, again, it doesn't have to be exact, but since we're almost at the end of our first draft of this song, those should be about as close as we want them. So now I would go ahead and do the background vocals first, but I really, really, really need to pee. So I'm going to go ahead and let the song play. Go do that while it's playing, come back, we'll see where those are, make our adjustments, hit those background vocals, and then that is first draft for this song done, and we can actually take a look at track 2. All right. Yep. I'm liking where we're at. That is for sure. Man, Reeker Boy, thank you so much for the comments. I hope I'm saying your name right too. Yes. He says awesome musicianship and atmospherics going on. Strings sound great. Yeah, no, thank you so much for that, man. Everybody in the band really appreciates that. Awesome to have a brand new face in here checking out some stuff. Yeah, brand new song here. We do have a full length album out that came out a couple years ago. It's called Paramnesia. It's a big double disc concept album that's kind of laid out like a prog metal Broadway musical, if you will. So super neat if you want to go check that out. I think we all need How to Believe Again. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yes, this is a Christian band for sure, too. So some neat stuff going on in there, too. Now, obviously, we try not to have too much of our songs be, like overt. This one is a little bit maybe more overt than our norm, but definitely Christian themes all throughout every song. Yeah, I think this thing is sitting so good. My gosh, yeah, I'm really liking how this is going. And I'm saying this, this is episode, 7 or something, and all of them have been, between an hour or 2 hours. We have spent some time on this song. So it's nice also that there, at least for me, there is still a little bit of magic still in the song, considering we've been listening to it over and over for, 12 hours now or something, if you put all the episodes back to back. We spent a lot of time on this. So let's dig into these background vocals a little bit and make sure that they're all balanced correctly. Reeker Boy asks, can I find it on Spotify? Yes, indeed. It is there. If you search Afterwinter, you will find 4 singles, which are non-album singles. They're called Regression, Under Fire, Light Displaces Darkness, and Within. And then our album, which is Paramnesia, which is on Spotify twice, one with separated tracks, and one that's literally the entire album from front to back with no stops and no different tracks. The whole album's kind of meant to flow together, and Spotify doesn't allow that. If you separate the tracks, it's going to put a little bit of gap in there. So we uploaded it twice, one kind of as intended, but you can't really jump around much. There's no tracks. But yeah, if you want to check that out, that would be awesome, man. All right, so our background vocals are just in the choruses, so this shouldn't take too long to get into. We do have 10 background vocal tracks, and this is, as I mentioned before, because we quad track everything, so it's really only 3 parts. BG1 is Majennica, the female singer, singing the same part 4 times, spread out in the stereo field so that we can hear everything real nice. Let's kind of take a listen. This is the
Guardians of His Word.
So you can hear it's a lot of vocals singing the same thing. It's not copy-pasted, actually sang all 4 times. And then BG2, I believe, is me. Again, quad-tracked, but nearer to the end. Yeah.
Hated.
The water's tainted. There's poison in the well.
Right, and then we also have 2 at the end, which are James, the other guitarist, did some background vocals on this album as well. Now, his aren't quad-tracked, his are just double-tracked, a little bit left, a little bit right, so that we can still get a little bit of spread in there, and he's kind of just beefing up what's in there already. So if we hear all of these vocals here at the end of the chorus...
His house they dwell. Our message hated, the water's tainted, there's poison in the well.
Yeah. Now, I'm pretty good with this balance as is, other than those BG2s right there, where I mentioned that it kind of feels like they come in the middle of the word tainted. So I want to kind of fix that at least. Is suddenly we hear Ted, there's poison, and so I'm thinking the water's taint needs to come up. Let's hear that with everything in there again.
Our message hated, the water's tainted, there's poison in the well.
Yeah, so it's just a hair out of balance. It's almost not noticeable. Let me hear that one more time again to kind of get a good plan of action in my head.
The water's tainted.
Okay, so you know what? I'm actually thinking, hearing it like that maybe it's just the second half of the word tainted that needs to come down a little bit and everything else is fine. It's just, it annoys me how much we suddenly hear Ted. Let's bring that down. Yeah, that would be 3 decibels right there.
Our message hated, the water's tainted, there's poison in the well.
Yeah, I do think I want to bring the waters up just a little bit.
Our message hated, the water's tainted, there's poison in the well.
Good with that. Let's copy paste that to the second chorus. Well, not literally copy paste it, but we're going to do that same move. Oh, actually, I forgot. The lyrics are different right here. So we may actually not need to do this. Let's take a listen to this.
Stay dwell, ministry negated, the water's tainted, there's poison in the well.
So there we say ministry negated rather than the water's tainted. And I think that was a little quiet.
Ministry negated,
But, oh no, we still say the water's tainted, don't we?
the water's tainted, there's poison.
Okay. Getting a little backwards here. So let's definitely take the Ted down. There's extra vocals here is what I'm trying to get at. Where we put, I think we put the other ones at 17. I still want to bring ministry negated up just a hair. Oh, you know what? We should go ahead and bring the waters tainted up as well. We did that in the last chorus too. Let's hear that.
Ministry negated, the water's tainted, there's poison in the well.
Perfect. There is one more thing on BG2 here, this right here in this particular chorus, not in the first chorus.
The world looks to us, but what we show is our weakness.
I think I'm good with that as is. It's subtle. People might miss it, but I think it's okay. I don't want to push it there. Okay, and then the only other thing is the third chorus, which on that last listen through, I said I was pretty good with already. So maybe this is good. Let's just hear this is the time has come for us to make amends part.
The time has come for us to make amends. Show the world how to believe again.
Yeah, I think I'm good with that. Let's kind of hear that by itself. That is a really neat, it's a huge 3-part harmony thing going on there, which again is, yeah, the melody is me, the upper harmony is Majennica, and the lower harmony is me again.
Cross, spread the word, the darkness lies.
The time has come for us to make amends. Show the world how to believe again. The time has come for us to make amends.
Darkness lies.
The time has come for us to make amends. Show the world how to believe again.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Okay, so now we need to check the earlier parts of the song to see if that EQ has damaged the mix at all. Theoretically, it should help all the rest of it, but just in case, it would be pretty easy for us to turn off that little cut just right there. Turn it off until the end.
Hated, the water's tainted, there's poison in the well.
I do kind of feel like I'm hearing it a little bit less well. So let's go ahead and turn that off. Now that was peak 1, I believe, wasn't it? No, peak 2. I'm glad I looked at that. I would have been a little bit upset. Peak 2 gain. It's currently at -1, but needs to be at 0 until the ending. And this is something we need to do for all of these. Peak 2 needs to be at 0 until we get to the end. Okay. Done. Okay. I think that's first draft. Gosh, it feels good to be to the end of the first song. Might not be the only thing we do to it, but we are at the end of the first song. Awesome. Okay, now, before we export, we need to do a couple of things. The main thing is this right here. We need to turn that limiter off. We don't want this mix to be limited. That happens in mastering. So we've talked a couple times in other episodes about why we're mixing with a why we're mixing with a limiter on. It does have several really important benefits, but when we export, we don't want that on. Now the other thing is, while this thing is exporting, it mutes this mic. So I'm going to export off stream. We only have about 15 more minutes before I need to go. Maybe I can push it a little bit further than that, but let's look at the next one. Let's open track 2. Hooray! Yes. Okay, here it is. Okay. Yeah, okay. I was going to say, if I've done this right, this mic should still be on. Okay, I think I set up the stream mic for all the songs on the album so that I wasn't doing that on stream. Track 2. Yes. Track 2 on this album is actually the title track. So this song is called Boundless. And this is the first song on the album that kind of introduces a theme that we keep a lot throughout this album, which is kind of the theme of dealing with loss, which is something that all of us in the band have dealt with more than once. In the recent past, we lost a whole lot of really important people to us, not the least of which was our lead singer, Jerry. So on Paramnesia, there was still the male and female vocalist, but it was Majennica and Jerry. Jerry unfortunately passed away last year from brain cancer, and he was not the only kind of important to AfterWinter person that passed away since the release or around the release of Paramnesia. So this album's lyrics deal quite a lot with kind of getting past that. You know what I mean? So the Boundless here is going to be our first one that's kind of aimed at that. So we need to make some changes here so that we can move forward on this one. The first thing that we need to do is save as. Because we want to keep the tracking mix as is. The tracking mix already sounds okay. It's got lots of elements from it that we want to keep. We don't want to lose that when we go into mixing, so we're going to save as into a different project that we can mess with, and if we need to pull anything back in from the tracking mix, it'll still be here. So let's do that. Okay, good. That was a quick process, since we're not changing folders. So now here we are in our new project. We could delete everything in here and not actually lose anything, so that would be handy. The first thing that we need to do is, of course, is our context mix, which we have a decent one already with our tracking stuff, but we can pull in a lot of those presets from Poison in the Well to kind of start with on this one. I'm seeing another thing we can do real fast. There are a couple of things in here that we don't need anymore since we're not recording. The first thing being this click track. We can delete that click track. We don't need that to mix with. Let me just make sure there isn't anything else that's jumping out at me as stuff that's unnecessary. Some of these other master tracks would fall under that. Do we want to take a listen to it? I'm not sure that I'll have a huge amount of time. If we start pulling in presets, that's absolutely going to take up the rest of the time we have just to put the presets from the previous song onto this one. Let's cleanse the palette and listen, I think. Let me see what I need. I don't think anything but my mic is sending to the stream right now, so we need to fix that. Yeah, we want that and that. All of these things need sends out to the stream. I think all the rest of it does. Just like that. Ought to give us stream. Yes, this is a little loud. Let me turn that down to where I normally put it. There we go. And now we should be able to hear this, okay? All right, yeah, I'm just going to let this play. Now, this one is short. I know a prog band wrote a short song. Isn't that weird? This is also very unusual for us. Most of our songs are usually pretty long. This one's like 3.5 minutes or something. This is very concise for us. Yeah, like almost 4, but not quite. So let's give this a play. Please do let me know if you're not hearing something here in a second, just in case I've set something up wrong. So much quieter than the other one.
Free now to run in the end.
Just in case you were wondering what difference mix makes, just remember that Poison in the Well sounded like that before we started. I mean, that certainly wasn't bad, but wow, how much more quiet that was and less punchy and powerful. It almost felt, I almost want to say pathetic. And I don't mean that in like that the song was bad, but like just in terms of the mix in comparison to what we just heard in Poison in the Well. Wow, that's such a difference. Yeah. Woo. Okay, well, oops, I just kicked my camera. So there's lots of things in this one that are a little bit different. It's short, it's a little more concise, it's mostly my vocals rather than being kind of a split between me and Majennica. Majennica only has background vocals in this one. We have that interesting thing at the very beginning of the song that's a lot more modern than we normally go, the kind of like radio sound effect thing. So that's actually what we've highlighted right here. This is the radio effect bus, which is basically doing a mid-range bandpass. You can see getting rid of the lows, getting rid of the highs, only leaving a tiny little bit of mid-range in here, and also a flanger. Now this is only on the drums in the beginning, so the guitar isn't like that, but the guitar kind of lends itself, and that's definitely a modern trick that we don't do very often. So that's something we want to maintain for this. This radio effect sounds exactly like what I want it to already. We don't want to delete this when we're deleting other stuff. So let's go ahead and start pulling in some of our stuff from Poison in the Well. Now, unfortunately, we probably won't get to hear it because I'm going to need to get off the stream here in a few minutes to head over to the production rehearsal. But we can definitely get started working on it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to grab every single track except for the stream mic. We've already got that. We don't want that. And we're going to bring in the plugins. We're not doing anything but bringing in the plugins and also the volume, not the volume automation, the volume values, basically. So we're just bringing in information from Poison in the Well. We're not bringing in anything else. We're not bringing in audio tracks or anything from the other song, just all of the plugins and the volume values from that song, from which we will start on this one. I hope my mic didn't cut out during all of that. It just occurred to me the computer was working real hard on something. There we go. Yeah, so these are all the Poison in the Well tracks. Now, we're not going to need all of these. A lot of these we can just get rid of. But this will allow us to start from kind of where we ended in Poison in the Well, at least as far as how each thing sounds. We are going to want to adjust the volumes independently so that we're making sure that our volumes in this song are specific to this song. But at least the sound should be consistent, and we will be able to make better informed decisions on changing those sounds if something needs to sound a little different in this song than it did in Poison in the Well. Okay, so I'm just gonna collect my thoughts here because this is a lot of stuff to suddenly need to brain out. Okay. Now, we do want to maintain that radio effect. That's the only auxiliary channel currently in the song that needs to stay. And it is currently assigned to bus 2. We don't want it to stay there. So let's move the radio effect out to bus 30 where we know it won't be in the way. We also need to change the send on the drum master to bus 30 so that it's still sending to the radio effect just like it did before. Good. We want to change all of the outputs to stereo output. Oop, oop, oop. We went too far. Yeah, stereo output. And that will allow us to delete all of the sends. We don't want to delete send 30. Delete the thing that's sending to you guys. Ooh, we won't be able to delete the drum master either, will we? Because that's what's sending to 30. We're going to have to replace that. We can also get rid of our temp vocal reverb. That's what bus 31 is at the moment, so we can get rid of that. We can delete that temporary vocal reverb. Why is it? Yes. There we go. Yes, the rhythm guitar master can go. That's going to be replaced by our Poison in the Well one. Now, normally I would get rid of the drum master too, but that does need to stay since that's what's sending to the radio effect. Okay, so I think we've got that stuff. Everything that needs to be deleted should be. Let's see, the drum master usually ends up being 10. So let's go ahead and change that to bus 10 now while I'm thinking about it. There it went. We also have some automation on the drum master already, which interacts with that radio effect, how the song starts with no drum information other than what's going to that radio effect, and then the radio effect turns off and the real drums kind of switch places with it. So all of that is stuff we're going to want to maintain. So we need to set up the end chain down here. We're going to set up our pre-master here on that bus 31 that used to be the vocals. Right. The pre-master is what needs to send the song to the stream. Just like that. Then we have our router, which is where everything goes. Everything in the whole song goes here, so that's bus 1. Our vocals master, everything in the whole song that's vocals goes to bus 2. Our drums and instruments master, which is basically everything that's not a vocal, is bus 3. Buses 2 and 3 need to output into bus 1. Bus 1 needs to output to that pre-master. Got it. And then we need to start kind of adjusting everything over here. Now, I do know that we do not have any clean guitars in this song. So all of this, the clean stuff we pulled in from Poison in the Well, those can go. We don't need to keep that. There's probably some other stuff that can go too, but we'll probably get those kind of as we go. Now, the only volume value we are going to be keeping from Poison in the Well is the bass drum and the snare drum. And even those may change slightly. Everything else we're going to be zeroing out and doing our context mix like we did with Poison in the Well, bringing the faders up generally one at a time, looking at getting just kind of a basic mix from which we can start to make decisions about how things sound. But we're going to keep stuff like what effects are on each channel, what effects are on the snare reverb, that sort of thing. We're going to be getting rid of most of these volume values. So let's start pulling stuff up. I am at the point that I should probably go, but darn it, I'm excited about this and I want to work on it. We'll push it just a little bit further. So I'm going to grab all of our drum-related channels. These are the Poison in the Well channels, by the way. And we're going to drag them up the screen here to our Boundless drum channels, which are here. Let's grab all of our bass and snare-related stuff and put that up. Okay, just there. And we're going to copy the effects over. So all this stuff right here, this is what we just heard. We had channel EQs, compressors, temporary reverb. There was a multipressor there on the bass drum. All of this stuff is going to get taken off and instead replaced by the effects we used on Poison in the Well. So here's our bass drum stuff, the virtual mix rack giving us EQ, compression, and saturation. The channel EQ giving us the high pass, and then also our little boost at 60 and our cut at 80. The multipressor making sure double bass doesn't get too crazy. We're also going to go ahead and change that to be 16.6, or well, let's do 16.5, the volume. We now don't need our Poison in the Well bass drum track. We can get rid of that. For our snare, our virtual mix rack giving us EQ, compression, saturation. our channel EQ giving us high pass, and also another little extra bit we took out. Our 3 snare tracks, the backbeat snare, the snare fills, and the groove snare all need the same thing, although the virtual mix rack on the snare fills and groove snare also had that noise gate. Everything else is the same. Looks like we used a value of positive 4 decibels and positive 2 decibels for those. All of those can go now. Next, we've got our snare reverb, which we are going to assign to bus 4. Did it go? There we go. And then we are going to send a copy of our 3 snare channels to that bus. Just like that. We are going to zero out the volume of that reverb for now. Then we've got our kick and snare master, which we're going to just put at unity volume right now. This is going to be bus 5. And our bass drum, snare drum, and snare reverbs are all going to output right there to that. So it's kind of like a little sub-master there. Yep, in this case we can actually go ahead and output that kick and snare master to the drums master as well. Sometimes we can't do that yet. Okay, so that's everything for that. Next are our toms. Now, as I've mentioned before, for this setup, Eli used 3 rack toms and 2 floor toms. In Poison in the Well, we did not have any time where he hit floor tom 2. Looks like the same can be said for Boundless. So that would be a track we'd have to set up from scratch if it were present. It is still not present in this song. Okay, so we can get rid of the compression, the EQ, and the temporary reverb. I guess all of this was temporary. No point in pointing it out for the reverb specifically. We can get rid of all that stuff. We are going to bring over our drum leveler, our virtual mix rack, and our channel EQ for each one of these tracks. Boy, I sure wished Logic wasn't going so slow. This is a byproduct of that update that we did. This computer just kind of automatically updated right before the mixing process for all this started. And everything still works, thankfully, but man, is it slow. Okay, so we've got all of our effects moved over. We don't need to worry about volume values here. We are just going to knock these all the way down to nothing. I do want to adjust our panning values just a hair so that they match. That's something I changed in Poison in the Well. Then we can get rid of our Poison in the Well tracks, which leaves us with our Tom's Reverb auxiliary, which is going to be bus 6. We're going to create sends on these channels out to that bus 6. Routing is a little bit boring, by the way. Sorry about that. It's just a lot of clicking and me trying to fill the empty space by talking. Oh, yes, there's a couple. We want to mute. Do we want to mute what those are doing? Yeah, we should probably mute what those are doing. And we've got our Tom's Master, which is going to be bus 7. So all the toms and that reverb all output to 7. And then the Tom's Master outputs to the Drums Master. Just like that. Okay, next are the overhead channels. Looks like we do have that extra set of overheads, just like we did in Poison in the Well. So we do actually need all 8 of these. Yeah, we're doing a little bit of adjustment across the board here. So we're getting rid of all these channel EQs. We can also get rid of the volumes on all of these. Oop, the one didn't go down. There we go. We're going to adjust the panning values as well. So right now they're hard left and hard right, but I brought them in just a little bit on the last one. Yep, just like that. And then we just need to bring in our channel EQs from over here. So our hi-hat mic gets this one, and that can also copy to the extra hi-hat mic channel. Our ride cymbal mic gets this one. Copy that here. Our overhead left gets that one. And our overhead right gets that. Copy that over here. And that means we no longer need any of these channels. Pulls us up to our overhead master, which is going to be bus 8. All of our overhead channels are going to feed over into that. And that's going to go into the drum bus as well, or drum master. There we go. Okay. All right, I'm definitely getting to a point where I'm going to be a little bit late if I don't head out of here. Okay, so you guys know all the ending stuff, all the normal ending stuff is the same here. When we come back, hopefully tomorrow, but I'm not sure, we will continue routing, and then we will get our context mix for this song, and then we will be moving through all the same steps we did before, just hopefully a little bit faster since we've established a lot of sounds for how this stuff all works. Yeah. Got a production rehearsal that I need to get to right now, but we did a long one today. This stream is by far the longest one that we've done, but we got a first draft of the first song done. So that is, 1 out of 11 done. Really, it's 1 out of 10, if I'm being honest. The track 10 itself is so short. It's more of a prelude to the 11th track than its own song. So yes, amazing amount of work done. Really excited about this, how it's sounding so far, especially when we compare it to the listen through of Boundless we just did. I mean, wow, what a difference going from Poison in the Well to this one. So looking forward to hearing this one sound like Poison in the Well did in a bit. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Everybody that's watching right now, anybody who watched for a little bit earlier, anybody who's watching this later on when it's not live, as I always say, I appreciate every second of your time that you spend checking this out, hanging out with me. Really appreciate all the chat stuff today. Reeker Boy, if you're still in here, super glad to have you. Super awesome to see a new face. Hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you go check out Paramnesia and some of those singles over on Spotify, I hope you like those too. Looking forward to maybe seeing you in here again for some more streams. We are, at least at the moment, planning to stream the entire mix process for this album from front to back. So there will be plenty more streams where this one came from. Until then, guys, like I said, I'm hoping we'll get some tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure if I will have the time tomorrow, but I'm going to really try to because I'm super excited about digging into this one. So if not tomorrow, sometime next